Okay, thank you for introduction. And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's my honor to be here, and I would like to share an ongoing project today. And the title is a multimodal metaphor study of pop science webtoons. And I'm wondering, have you ever read about science comics or popular science articles with some illustrations? And do you think that those comics or pictures are more easier for us to understand, to learn the scientific knowledge than pure texts? And let's see this one. Here's the two paragraphs. The first one is, I'm a polyhedral or jam shape called an adenovirus. I have large spikes and cause pneumonia in the lungs. And the second one is, I'm a bacteriophage, a complex virus that can infect and replicate inside bacteria. Many of us look alien or robot-like with a multi-sided head, a tube body, and tail fibers or legs. I'm sure that you will have a picture in your mind about the two descriptions of the virus and bacteria. But let's see this picture. It shows the clear image of the virus and the bacteria. So I think it's much more exact than what we have imagined in our mind. So I think personally, I believe the science comics is more easier for us to understand than scientific knowledge. So today our main character is Pop Science Webtoon, and I will be use its short form PSW hereafter. And it's a kind of new format of science communication. It is a sequential art form composed of a single cartoon with regular patterns for science popularization. And you can see this one. I don't know whether you can see this because here's something covering this whole picture. Anyway, there's a boy here and speaking that I'm going to find a brand new planet. And here you can see here's eye-like shape here. And here inside the eye shape stuff, there's a planet inside it. And we can totally figure out that this is an eye, right? And the boy is descending down the ladder and with his small rocket came to the first planet and then to another planet. So actually on your phone, you can vertically scroll the screen to see what is going on in the strips. And this kind of pop science webtoon is a multimodality genre, and it includes the image and the text here. Oh, I will use the laser one. And when working on a popular science webtoons, the author often has to come up with some metaphors to depict complex, abstract scientific concepts. And in Lakoff and Johnson argue that metaphor is an important cognitive tool that allows us to understand and interact with the world. In popularizing science, metaphors help readers deal with those complex things by using their own knowledge domain. And those 36 cartoons or webtoons that we use as copies are from the Chinese official account called 图图是道, and I translate in metaphorically into comics are truths, and it comes from a state level comprehensive Chinese website, China Daily. And actually in this research, two main theoretical foundations are used. The first one is conceptual metaphor theory proposed by Lakoff and Johnson in their very famous work, Metaphors We Live By in 1980. They believe that metaphors are conceptual in nature, which means more than superficial linguistic devices. metaphors are actively associated with our conceptual system that governs the daily functioning of our thoughts. Their main concern is about the mapping between source domain and target domain. And the second one is the multimodal metaphor proposed by Fosterville. And he believes that metaphor in which target, source, and or mappable features are represented or suggested by at least two different sign systems, and one of which may be language or modes of perception. And here are two kinds of them. And the first one is pictorial metaphor, including contextual metaphor, hybrid metaphor, pictorial simile, integrated metaphor, and culture embedded metaphor. And another one is word image metaphor, includes image dominant metaphors, text dominant metaphors, and complementary metaphors. So in this part of research, I'm going to concentrate on two research questions. The first one is, what are the types of multimodal metaphor in popular science webtoons, and what is the cognitive construction mechanism? And the second one is, what kind of genre features do popular science webtoons show in terms of multimodal metaphor construction? And to figure out the multimodal metaphor types in PSW, we use MIPVU to identify the text metaphors. It includes those steps, and I will not, because of time limitation, I will not introduce them one by one. And another one is the three criteria proposed by Fosterville to identify the pictorial metaphors. And finally, we found 6 types. As I mentioned before, here are several pictorial metaphors and word image metaphors, but in the corpus we used, we haven't found all of them. So there are only 6 types in this data. And as we can see, the complementary metaphors account for the largest proportion, which is 44.4%. And for the contextual metaphors, it accounts for the least, which is 2.8%. And the pictorial similes, text-dominant metaphors, hybrid metaphors, culture-embedded metaphors are between two of them. So in the following parts, I will illustrate them one by one. The first one is, I think it's covered, but it's okay. The first one is complementary metaphor. And as you can see, it is divided into 2 kinds. The first is text as the source domain and image as the target domain, and vice versa. So the textual part is directly involved in the construction of metaphor, and rather than only involved in the representation of source domain or target domain. Therefore, if the textual information is removed, the metaphor will disappear and it will not be completed. So in these webtoons, as you can see, here are some Chinese characters: unhappy, introverted, and lazy. Those are negative comments to the girl who is falling down. And as you can scroll it, here are some other kind of negative symptoms that the girl has. And you can see here that the girl is still falling down. And those symptoms are lack of pleasure, anxiety, unwell sense of body, and thick-witted and guilty. Those words are surrounding the girl and falling down with her. So our first metaphor comes out that disease or sorrow is down. And as you can see, the background is black. So another metaphor, that emotion or the disease is black. And also, when we see that the girl is falling down with those words and become a black balloon, so we can actually find out some similar traits between the balloon and the girl. That is, they're both fragile. So her mental state is balloon. Here's another metaphor have been depicted here. And down below here, the Chinese character says that depression is a kind of disease. So, or character textual domain or source or target domain comes out here, that depression. And the whole metaphor that depicted in this webtoon is that depression is black balloon. So it's meant to show that depression is like a black balloon, depressing, fragile, and uncontrollable. However, without it is difficult to determine the image representation which is the balloon without the words depression. So this is the complementary metaphor. And another one is pictorial metaphor, pictorial simile, sorry. The core meaning of pictorial simile is that the source domain and target domain are mainly presented in the visual elements. Even if the picture context is covered, you can still find out the metaphor. The metaphor can still be constructed, but the distinction between source domain and target domain will be blurred. So let's see this webtoon. In the upper part, you can see here, the gas is letting off from the earth, and it forms a kind of greenhouse here. And the earth here has legs and arms. So we can see that earth is a human. And why we can know that this gas is carbon dioxide is because in the textual part, it gives us the pictorial context here. So we know that carbon dioxide is greenhouse. And in the lower part, still a personification is used because the earth has eyes, nose, and mouth in the gas vapor. So earth is human is still constructed here. So if there's no context, we may not tell that the gas is carbon dioxide, but we can still figure out that the earth is human, this personification. And that is the pictorial simile. And next is text dominant metaphor. Actually, here are some words, and I don't know whether it is covered. So the main purpose of popular science webtoon is to explain scientific knowledge clearly to the audience in an accessible way. And therefore, in most cases, the images in webtoons are mostly the visual elaboration or illustration of the text, which have been proposed by Professor Theo about the text and image relation. And so in terms of metaphor, it is mainly expressed through language. It is mainly expressed through language channel, and images can illustrate the metaphors expressed in the text in various ways. So I'm going to show you this webtoon, and the first one is its textual metaphor is illustrated here, and I will translate it. The first one is brain is headquarters, and another one is a cerebral cortex is commander, and another one here is corpus striatum is staff officer. And here the pictures on the right side and in the bottom have just make are not involved in the construction of the metaphor, but can make the content conveyed by the text here more vivid and easier to understand. And it is true of the following two webtoons. The first one here, the first one, muscle is human. Here's a Chinese character. Ji here is translate. It can be translated to the muscle, and we can see they are all human shapes, right? So here's a personification. Muscle is human. And another one here. The Thalamus is a secretary. So here also the picture here is not involved in construction, but it's more vivid. So we can see all of those metaphors I have mentioned are personification, which according to Leacock and Johnson is an ontological metaphor that allows the audience to understand the experiences of various non-human entities. So, and next is the hybrid metaphor. Two non-composable objects act as source domain and target domain, and respectively are fused into a gestalt, and the features of the source domain are mapped to the target domain through the integration of space and shape. And let's see this webtoon. So here, the lever here and puzzle are morphologically integrated and constructing the metaphor. The lever is puzzle, and where the source domain is puzzle and the target domain is lever. And in the text below here, it says that the lever has the regeneration capacity and can be removed partially and donated to the patients. So it's the same for this one. You can see that there's a swimming pool shape, like the lungs are like the swimming pool, and this one without water are the lung with disease. And so we can have this metaphor, lungs are swimming pools. And here a swim ring can save the patient. So another metaphor, lung transparent. A lung transplant is swim ring. So this is the hybrid metaphor. And the last but one is culture embedded metaphor. It is culturally dependent and requires the audience to have certain culture background knowledge. So like this webtoon, I don't know whether you have seen or watched the palace drama in China. It is very famous. And if there's a concubine of the emperor who is not in favor by the emperor, will be put into the cold palace, and no one will visit them in the future. So in this webtoon, the artist compared the ancient currencies into the concubines into who are not in favor and put into the cold palace. And well, the transfer, a new way for us to pay our bills, is compared to the concubine who is in favor by the emperor. So here the metaphor is currency is imperial concubine. And if you don't have that culture knowledge, you may not understand this metaphor, and you may not understand what this artist is going to talk about. And the last one is contextual metaphor. Well, in the construction of contextual metaphor, contextual information is particularly important because once removed from the context, there will be no metaphor. So in this example, a row of sickles was suspended from the rope, and the green grass around like men. So at the bottom, the man is holding a sickle with a big coin embedded in its base. So what they want to express here is that digital currency has become a tool to encircle money. And the metaphor here is the money is grass and the digital currency is sickle. So without the contextual information provided by the digital currency embedded in the base of the sickle, we may not figure out the two metaphors expressed here. So now let's move on to the second research question, the genre features. So first, multimodal metaphor accounts for a large proportion, as you can see, and especially as I mentioned the figure, the complementary metaphors account for the largest proportion. And second, let's see this example. Here, the Earth is lying on bed and asking the doctor, "Am I dying?" And the doctor said, "No, human beings." So here, a personification, Earth is human, is used. And as we have seen that I've mentioned before, the personification is all over the webtoons, right? So the second genre feature is that the popular science webtoons are based on the personification of natural objects. And third, the narration makes up most of the popular science webtoons because, as you can see, the webtoons, the artists are using narration to in telling some stories and integrate those scientific knowledge into those stories and to let us understand those scientific knowledge. And according to those three features above, they work together and lead to the last genre feature of the popular science webtoon. That is, it is attractive and straight away. And here are some references. And as I said that at the beginning, this research is an ongoing project, and therefore suggestions and comments and criticisms are welcome. And here are our email addresses. And I hope all of us could strong content travel the open road. Thank you very much.